Hi there, my name is Ryan Snelling. Welcome to the Watch Diary podcast or the Rewatch Ryan YouTube channel. However you take in my content, I'm greatly appreciative of you. It is July 22nd, 2022, 7/22/22, and we're talking Jordan Peele, we're talking Nope, maybe a little bit of The Gray Man. We're also going to rank the Russo Brothers finally, so nice little epic weekend that we have here today on the Watch Diary podcast feed. If you haven't looked already, go to the Rewatch Ryan YouTube channel and check out my early reaction to Nope video on the channel right now, just a couple minutes. Also, while you're there, make sure that you have your notifications turned on for the channel. I noticed there's a very low percentage of you guys, of subscribers, and I don't know if this is just what it's like on YouTube in general, that actually have those notifications turned on. So it would really mean a lot to me if you just hit that little bell notification on my page. And speaking of that, I think I talked about it last week on the show, but I got finally my very first paycheck from YouTube, and I'm just very grateful. You know, when me and Jay we're working on Sight and Sound together, we got paid a couple of times for the YouTube channel, and you know, a lot of that coin that I got is from a lot of that content too, because that content still does some business. But ultimately, my activity on Rewatch Ryan is what sparked it, and most of it came from that. And I'm very grateful for you for sticking around, hanging out with me, talking movies, and it was an exciting time for me. So it meant a lot to me to get my first deposit as Rewatch Ryan. So it was really cool. So thank you so much again for that. It's meant a lot to me. I've had an okay week. You know, I'm very grateful for everything that we have going on here, and ultimately this is my happy place. My microphone, my camera, you guys, talking to you all throughout the week. That's my happy place, and I wish that I could do it full time. I haven't quite, gotten there yet. I'm pretty far away actually from doing that, but this is my happy place. Just a lot going on in my other job, and it's really just had me down. I've been kind of toying with the idea of like moving back home, and there's a lot of reasons that I should, and there's a lot of reasons that I shouldn't, especially right now. I guess it's all about timing, but I've also tossed around the idea of going back to school, which I don't really know if I want to do. It would probably be a good thing to do that, especially if it's free, which in my case it would be free. I know it sounds crazy for me to not do it, so that's probably why I will go on and pull the trigger and do that. But just a lot of things, a lot of life decisions to be made, and it's never fun. I can make one or two decisions at a time. Back in the day, I used to be so flippant about decision making, and a lot of my friends, especially my best friend Eric, used to always make fun of me for how I would just out of nowhere choose this life decision without looking back and without thinking much. And it wasn't always bad, but and I do kind of miss that. I think I've talked about this before. The way that things weigh on me, because of like my anxiety, it really sucks. I feel like that's the most obvious statement to make. Anybody who has anxiety and other similar, paranoia and anxiety and panic, and everybody who deals with that kind of stuff, just every little thing weighs on you. And it wasn't always like this for me, and I miss the time when it wasn't. And so making those like flippant decisions would be sort of reminiscent of a time when I didn't care as much. And I guess a lot of the time too, the flippant decision was like bailing out on something, or like choosing something else over something. And like, so there was maybe also like a negative connotation to it, if that makes sense. Cause people would always just question like, hey, is that the best thing? But if maybe I applied this flippant, like, oh, we'll just do it, or I won't do it, apply it to the decision to go back to school, then it wouldn't have such a negative connotation. If all of a sudden one day I was just like, well, sign up for school, I'm going. Nobody's going to be like, wait, what? Why did you do that? So that'd be like a good way. That'd be a good reason to make that kind of decision. But anyway, I just got a lot of stuff to figure out. But yeah, this is my happy place. So I'm going to enjoy my happy place. Look, speaking of happy, I don't have my trusty Trenta cold brew today. I'm toying with the idea, kind of going back to my mental health. I'm toying with the idea of slowly getting rid of caffeine. Um, we'll see how it goes. I want to ease off of it because I drink a lot of caffeine. I don't know exactly to the milligram, but a trusty Trenta cold brew. Let's look up the caffeine content because it's got to be well over 300 milligrams. Trenta cold brew, Starbucks, caffeine. There's no way that that's true. This one says 195 milligrams. There's no way that's true. Okay, here we go. The strongest cold drink you can order is a Trenta cold brew, which has 360 milligrams of caffeine in it. That's how I start every day. And there are some days where I take in like a Celsius energy drink, which is also 200. So let's say 560. And while sometimes I'll have multiple cold brews in my day. So like maybe I'll get later in the day 1 or 2 grande sweet cream cold brews. That's a lot of cold brew. I mean, that might as well be another 360, right? Because a grande is about half, roughly, the size of a... Yeah. It's got to be something crazy like that. That's how much caffeine I drink in a day. So I feel like I need to sort of level out my... I need to let my neurons relax a little bit. So I have a store-bought, Stoke coffee cold brew that I put in here. And I also bought mushroom coffee, which I bought years ago, and I really, really liked it. But I had it hot, I believe. I'm making it into a cold brew. So right now I have my mushroom coffee, so it's lower caffeine, but it also has mushrooms and it's just stuff that's really good for you. And I'm making that into a cold brew as we speak. So I'm pretty excited about that. And, I don't think it's going to be a matter of like saving money. I do need to find ways to save money, but ultimately, I think it's a better habit and about the same amount weekly expense. So I think it's going to be worth it. So yeah, I should probably just drink more water, honestly. But anyway, so that's why there's no cold brew. And I don't have my water in here with me, but it's all good. So anyway, yeah, Nope was the big summer movie season. It's coming to a close pretty fast. It's really unfortunate because I have enjoyed it. It's not like we have it's not like it's been a banger after banger necessarily. There have been times, but mostly the quality has been good. And I think we're going to finish off the summer season next week with Bullet Train. I hate looking at the Fandango website because they list so much shit that I've just never heard of, and I'm obviously never gonna get to watching or talking about. The other obvious thing that I need to bring up as I'm looking for the rest of the schedule is the fact that Comic-Con is going on right now. So again, I'm recording this on Friday morning. Not a lot has happened with that so far. It's really just been like the Dungeons and Dragons trailer, which I did find to be entertaining. I don't really know how I feel about it overall. But here's the thing. Wait, what? Where's Bullet Train? Okay, so next week I don't know what I'm watching because I feel like the release calendar changes every... But Bullet Train is in 2 weeks, I guess, and it's really just kind of the it of the summer movie season. Beast, I guess you could count, but the Idris Elba movie. So anyway, I can't find a good schedule. But yeah, so Comic-Con is coming out. I think the big stuff is Saturday. There's not a whole lot going today. Marvel Animation I saw, and I think the Lord of the Rings thing, which I definitely want to see, but I don't know if it's like a video worthy. So Saturday night, I do have to work on Saturday, but when I get home, I plan on making a video and maybe a podcast reacting to everything that we learned about Warner Brothers and Marvel. So that's really fun. So be on the lookout for that content as well. All right, so without further ado, let's rank every Russo Brothers movie. that they've directed, of course. With the exception of their very earliest film called Pieces. It was released in 97, I believe. I can't find distribution for this film anywhere. I think it was like an indie thing, a small time thing, only an hour, similar to how Nolan had that Following film come out. I can't find distribution for it anywhere. And look, you're big time producers, Russo Brothers. Figure out distribution if you want me to rank your movies on every movie ever. Just kidding. So yeah, that'll be the only thing that's left out of this list. So we had the other 8 films directed by the Russo brothers. And of course, we will include The Gray Man. I did cover The Gray Man last week on the show, but it's out on Netflix today, so more people are going to get to see it and watch it at home. So yeah, we're going to rank the Russo brothers films. I last night finished a movie called Welcome to Collinwood. That's not my last place, by the way. I'm just bringing it up. I finally slipped it in there, so now I'm fully prepared to do this. Now, look, I am going to release this list publicly on Letterboxd as soon as the podcast is out, and I'm done. That's where you can follow along with every one of these rankings here on every movie ever. So go to letterboxd.com/rewatchryan. There are links to it everywhere on this YouTube channel. So, with that said, let's start with number 8, the worst Russo brothers movie. Now look, the second half, the bottom half of this list, I feel like the quality is like good to poor. And then, and you can probably guess what my top half of this list is like, where it becomes excellent and iconic. So, starting with You, Me, and Dupree. Yes, I think this is the movie that I was most surprised to find out that the Russo brothers directed, because I remember when this movie was being released, when it came out, it was a comedy that I thought I would be into growing up. It came out in 2006. Owen Wilson at the time was big and funny and at the height of his powers. So I had no idea, though, who the Russo brothers were when it was being released. And retrospectively, I had no idea. Like, I don't remember if I've ever heard them talk about it, like on any Marvel red carpet, that they directed You, Me, and Dupree. So I watched You, Me, and Dupree for the very first time in preparation for this list all these years later. And now that I've seen it, it is such a generic comedy. It didn't make me laugh once. And while watching it, there's nothing about it that is signature Russo brothers to me. Now, also, I don't quite know, and because I've watched so many other Russo brothers movies outside of the MCU, I still don't really know who they are as directors. I'm not going to lie. I feel like it's really just coming down to the fact that they can deal well with ensemble cast, the juggling of all the plates with all the Marvel movies, but also all their television work and the episodic work that they do there with Community and Arrested Development. I feel like that is what I would apply to them, but it doesn't really give me a whole lot of insight as to who they are visually. And so You, Me, and Dupree is a movie that is just simply not a good comedy. It's a forgettable movie, but also anybody on this earth that works in Hollywood could have directed this movie. I mean, there's so much of like, hey, you just point a camera at an actor during a comedy, and a lot of the work, of course, the improvisation was probably there and the collaboration for sure, and I'm not doubting any of that. But also, I just didn't laugh. And I thought it was actually really stupid, and I've seen better versions of this story told. And so ultimately, this could have been anybody's movie. I mean, there's nothing about this that tells me it's Russo brothers, and I just simply didn't enjoy it whatsoever. So it's kind of silly to like roast You, Me, and Dupree that much, but it just wasn't good and wasn't Russo brothers to me. So they were so much a director for hire, it's not even funny. So yeah, that's number 8, You, Me, and Dupree. So again, the bottom half of this list, the quality is just so similar. So honestly, I feel like the last 3 movies, the bottom 3 movies especially, could all be interchanged. Like, it almost doesn't work that this is a ranking, because it's really just 2 sections of a filmmaker's filmography. So the next movie is Cherry. Cherry was highly anticipated for me. It kind of bummed me out that it was on Apple TV Plus and instead of going into theaters. But Tom Holland, drug addict, military vet, true story. I loved all of it. I was eating it up. I thought it was for sure going to be Oscar bait. And I was excited to see the Russo brothers take a chance to do something like that. I was excited to see Tom Holland do something other than Spider-Man, somebody that wasn't high-fiving and saying, "This is awesome," every 3 minutes. And ultimately what we have here is a slog to get through. It is well acted. I think it looks good, but the pacing of it, it's a drag. Tonally, it's unbalanced, and it's overly stylized for no reason. And I felt the way that I feel like everybody else felt. I mean, I went to look up the reviews because I couldn't quite remember what the reception was at the time. Obviously, it just wasn't heard from again by the time that the Oscar discussion was coming back around. I remember it being released like earlier in the year, like in March of last year or 2 years ago, whenever it was. And yeah, the talk and the discussion around it just petered out. And yeah, I just wasn't a big fan of it at all, really. It got me hooked, and then from there, it just let me go. And so, Cherry, You, Me, and Dupree, both movies, I just don't have a sense of who the Russos are yet. I mean, they're two wildly different looking movies. It's kind of hilarious. So the next movie, number 6, is a movie called Welcome to Collinwood. It is available on HBO Max. I looked up the cast, and if you just looked at this cast and the synopsis, you'd think that it was like, there's a reality where this is the greatest Russo brothers movie ever made. I mean, the cast is awesome. Sam Rockwell, George Clooney has a minor appearance. I kind of couldn't believe how small of an appearance it was. William H. Macy, Luis Guzman. It's a really interesting cast. And again, a lot of people, the Russo brothers are in the press all the time, and I don't really hear a whole lot of references to their older movies before Marvel. So finding out these actors that they've worked with, not really ever hearing that these actors worked with the Russo brothers over time too, it's just kind of fascinating. So they made this when they were super young, and it would have been, 12 years before they made Winter Soldier. So this was an ensemble cast. It's quick. It's an hour and 25 minutes. It's just about a hodgepodge of characters who want to come together and pull a job to get some money, because they're all down and out, down on their luck in Cleveland, Ohio. Ultimately, I kind of thought it was boring. I didn't think that the characters really stood out that much, and I wasn't really entertained by it. You know, for a movie that was an hour and a half, I thought it was going to be the anti-Cherry, and I was really just going to have fun with a little bank heist or whatever. Or it wasn't a bank heist, but a money heist. And ultimately, I just easily discarded this movie out of my memory. This would have been like a year after Ocean's 11. It's kind of funny that George Clooney was in back-to-back heist movies, I guess, and one was one of my favorite movies of all time, and the other I didn't hear of until about a week ago. Directed by high-profile directors, the Russo brothers. So with these bottom 3 movies, they haven't found their voice, they haven't found their footing, and it's honestly kind of been one of the most disappointing filmographies to go down, because ultimately what we have here, the Russo brothers are flashy. They work with Chris Evans a lot. They work with high-profile movie stars nowadays, and they do high-profile blockbuster films, and that is where I think they have just simply and easily succeeded. I mean, I don't think there's any debate in anybody that's going to contest that. So the worst of those movies that they've put out is 2022's The Gray Man. So The Gray Man I enjoyed quite a bit. I just don't think that any particular part of it elevates it into a conversation where it's like one of the greatest of all time. This fits right in the pocket of like, this is for Ryan Snelling, because I love spy thrillers and espionage, and I love all of these actors. Gosling, De Armas, Chris Evans. By the way, somebody sent me how to pronounce her name, which is De Armas, but I just say De Armas. I don't really know why. De Armas and Chris Evans, they are just so watchable that this is easily their most entertaining movie in the bottom 4. And it's a movie for me, but it's also not going to blow anybody away. I do think I'll actually put it on. Now that it's on Netflix, I think I'll put it on and enjoy it, and enjoy a rewatch and just see how it works in that context, because I did see it in theaters last week, and I did enjoy it in the theaters. I just don't think it really blew me away, and, you know, it's just not that great. But The Gray Man works enough, and I think it's easily the best movie that they made outside of the MCU. It's a little bit more streamlined, more focused, and tonally together. if that makes sense. So again, and these characters are watchable, and I will watch a sequel for sure. It wasn't, I didn't hate it by any means. So here we go. We're in the top 4. We're halfway through. Obviously, we're just ranking Marvel movies at this point. But you know what? Because this is the Russo brothers ranked, and I was thinking about what the Russo brothers have contributed the most to the MCU, it's how they reinvigorated Captain America. So I'm looking at this list, and I've swapped 2 movies that I kind of can't believe that I swapped, but this is a Russo brothers ranking. I swapped 2 movies that I can't believe I swapped. And I don't know if it's going to stay there. You know, I'm going to rank the MCU at the end of this year again, and we'll see if it stays this way. But look, number 4 on the Russo brothers ranked list. Again, this isn't a Marvel list. It's a Russo brothers ranked list. Number 4 is Avengers Endgame. Yeah, I thought it was going to be 1 slot higher, but look, Avengers Endgame is the movie where I start to ask some questions about the rules and the concepts, and it's not that I hate any aspect of this film, because I really don't. I love this film. And that's why I always preface with, like, look, this is just some of the 4, maybe the 4 best Marvel movies ever made. So I'm really just kind of nitpicking at this point. But Avengers Endgame is the one that I think is a little bit more unbalanced. Nothing is greater than the third act. I mean, what a theatrical experience. But there are some of the concepts, and now that I'm thinking about Phase 4 and thinking about the things that I don't really respond to in the MCU, Endgame has a couple of those things, so I have to put it at number 4. But what else can be said about Endgame? I mean, that film is incredible, and I talk about it all the time. So that's why it's my number 4. Number 3 is The Winter Soldier. Captain America, The Winter Soldier. This is the movie that started it all in the MCU, and I think it might actually be arguably the best Russo brothers movie if you think about like how much they probably contributed versus like how much of it was a committee, because they really just kind of had to focus on Captain America, whereas like when they used the toys that they used in Civil War, a lot of those things have been already introduced, and so like Tony Stark obviously wasn't a Russo brothers invention. And so what Robert Downey Jr. did and what all the other characters were able to bring to the table from other movies was already sort of figured out. Of course, Black Panther and Spider-Man, you know, that conversation comes later. Captain America Winter Soldier is mostly them, I feel like, and it's one of the best solid. Talk about this espionage spy thriller, it's why it's better than The Gray Man. It's just done better, in my opinion. And it's really just the heart and the core of everything that we know Captain America to be. You know, I think that's the movie that we think of when we think of how the MCU really started to up its game and really started to explore different genres. I mean, this is kind of what started a lot of that movement. Like, oh, we're going to have a spy thriller in the MCU, and it's actually going to be really, really well done. And, you know, we, of course, also have so much of the Bucky stuff comes from this movie. And, again, so much has been said about this already. There's really not any point in going on and on about Captain America, the Winter Soldier, but that's why it's my number 3. I simply think Civil War's just a bigger and better version of Winter Soldier. And everything that they play with, it's a bigger task to bring all these characters together and make it all work. I mean, Civil War is arguably one of my favorite ensemble movies of the MCU. And again, so much has been said about Civil War. It's number 2. And number 1 is Infinity War. Because Infinity War is my favorite Marvel movie. Period. So talk about elevating with the ensemble every time, the balancing act, but also the greatest villain in the MCU was brought to us by the Russo brothers. And I don't mean introduced to the MCU. I meant like finally they delivered on this promise of Thanos. And right now we're questioning like, hey, when's the MCU going to deliver? What are we looking forward to? All those questions now. We didn't feel that way back in the day. We were always excited, looking forward to Thanos, and they delivered 100%. I mean, it was an impossible task, and they pulled it off. So, guys, sorry to just rush through all that, but I mean, so much has been said about those movies, and I just think once I talk about Winter Soldier and the ensemble, I get into the movie that accomplished more with an ensemble and another movie that accomplished more with an ensemble, and just getting it to work. I mean, just maybe the best directors for the MCU, for sure. So anyway, guys, that's my Russo Brothers ranked list. Number 8, You, Me, and Dupree. 7, Cherry. 6, Welcome to Collinwood. 5, The Gray Man. Number 4, Avengers Endgame. Number 3, The Winter Soldier. 2, Civil War. And 1, Infinity War. Guys, again, you can follow along with all of my lists. I'm about to rank Jordan Peele movies as well on letterboxd.com/rewatchryan. I got all kinds of lists up right now. And of course, just follow my watch diary there. So yeah, that was my Russo Brothers ranked. Let's get into the movie Nope, shall we? I was really looking forward to this. I really appreciate Jordan Peele. And look, there was this theme that I noticed going into the theater, or leaving the theater actually, that these prolific, exciting writer-directors all had their third films come out this year. Robert Eggers had his third film, The Northman. I was doing a lot of rankings of 3 movies. Robert Eggers and then Alex Garland, of course, came out with Men. And Jordan Peele was coming out with his movie. And basically with all 3 directors, though, I've really loved one movie. I, to degrees, didn't like the second movie. And the third movie has, been in question. So far, I really like The Northman. I didn't like Men. So I definitely like Robert Eggers more than Alex Garland. But I was hoping for another knockout movie from Jordan Peele. And a lot of the reactions coming out were telling me it was solid, maybe the best, maybe better than Get Out, which I appreciate. A lot of the reactions to Us were positive, but also I caught those people that were like, yeah, but it's not better than Get Out, and this part didn't work for me. And so I don't hate Us by any means. I just think it's fine, and I'm not really a fan of horror anyway, so it wasn't like Jordan Peele was my guy. I love to Get Out, but he wasn't my guy for horror and getting me into horror, at least up until this point. But I love the cast. I love the trailers for Nope. I loved everything about it, and I really didn't have any sort of, I didn't have any concerns. I sat down, and my theatrical experience wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst either. I sat smack dab in the middle of a row. And basically every single person to my right, and it wasn't like one entire group, it was a couple of different groups. There was a couple sitting next to me, and then another couple of people, but basically throughout the entire movie, I heard all of those people either talking to each other or just saying things about the movie out loud. Now, they weren't screaming, but I could hear them. It was enough for me to hear them whispering, and it drove me nuts. There was a couple times when, first of all, the couple next to me, I feel like they talked to each other the entire movie. It was like how you can have fun as a couple, like when you watch movies at home and you just constantly make fun of them. Like that kind of thing that I'm sure they thought they were cute and that's what they do all the time at home. But they did it in a theater when everyone in the room was watching this movie for the first time. And it really, really, really was annoying. Like, so annoying. It was crazy. And actually, they were, like, so quiet. But I could still hear them. And that's what made it worse, I think. And then other people to the right of them were commenting on every time a title card would come up, for example. So this movie is episodic. And anytime a title card would come up and a certain word would be shown on screen, I would just hear them like say the word and then like reference like what it is. And it's like, why? I couldn't stand it. And so people were driving me nuts. But I saw this in IMAX, so it was still big and still loud. And I, for the most part, was still immersed. And so they didn't take away from my enjoyment of the film itself, but they took away from my enjoyment of the experience, without a doubt. So I think the easiest comparisons to make, and these are great movies to compare it to, by the way, Signs meets Jaws. Now, it's definitely more Signs, and I loved it, and I appreciated it, but it's Signs meets Jaws. And I think that's an aspect I wasn't quite prepared for, and I really, really appreciate it. This man versus beast, predator versus prey. I really, really liked that aspect of it. It was a lot of fun because it was a lot of just the human characters trying to figure out what they were going to do to capture this alien on film. And I feel like I'm trying not to spoil anything, and I don't plan on spoiling anything. I'm trying to reference everything that I know were in the trailers. And the second trailer, by the way, when Ernesto saw it, I told him that I felt like it showed too much. I don't know if I still feel that way. I think I do. I wish I knew it just a little bit less, but it didn't like taint or ruin the movie by any means. So I think I can get away with everything that I've said so far. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it 100% delivered on its promise. And this is another hit, I think, for Jordan Peele. Now, is it perfect? I don't think it's perfect. I mean, it's definitely not better than the two movies I compared it to. I mean, of course, you're going to say, oh, of course it's not better than Jaws. But maybe it could have been better than Signs. I still don't think that it is, but it is very similar in tone, in the way that the story builds upon itself. I think Signs has a little bit of that episodic nature with the flashbacks, and this has a little bit more to that, and I think that's kind of why it works less. Because everything going on with Stephen Yeun, I think that's how you pronounce his name, from The Walking Dead and from Minari, I think he's a great character, but he does have like this entire like story arc that thematically makes sense and I understand, but at the end of the day, when you close the book, it's pointless. The theme, everything that we're exploring with the aliens and with the brother and sister with Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer's character, it's just a repeat of a lot of those themes, but it's not about the main characters, and it doesn't ultimately contribute to the story. It's a complete aside flashback for a character that isn't even involved in the main plot. So while it was entertaining and I enjoyed it, but it's just not a useful ingredient. And I know there's probably going to be arguments as to why it is, and people are going to talk about the themes from it. It's not like it's lost on me what they were trying to tell me. It's just kind of another movie. Like, it could have been another movie, but it was just a contributing ingredient to this that I don't think was necessary or worked very much. And it would have made a 2 hour and 15-minute runtime probably a little less than 2 hours, and it still would have been nope, in my opinion. But I'm also at the same time don't find it that harmful. And again, I actually was really intrigued by it. And the movie opens with a little nugget from that flashback, and so I was excited to see where it went because the movie opens there. And I think honestly, if the movie just didn't open there, it might have worked even more. We just got like a quick aside to what this other person was experiencing. But so ultimately, it wasn't that harmful because at the end of the day, I got a great summer blockbuster. You know, summer blockbusters aren't really like this anymore. You hear the word aliens and summer blockbuster, you think of, I don't know, a most recent one that was just absolute trash was Independence Day Resurgence. You know, it's not like that at all. It's the anti that. Maybe something I respond to more of is War of the Worlds, or like I said, Signs. Like, those are the movies. It's not like War of the Worlds, but I didn't mean that. I meant like an alien summer movie that I actually care about. But again, the performances are great. I love Daniel Kaluuya. I don't watch a whole lot of stuff with Keke Palmer, but she was excellent in the film, and I really enjoyed their dynamic. That's another thing that I love so much. The entry point, the dynamic and the setting between the characters. You know, historically, this family, and I'm looking up their names right now. Historically, the Haywood family has been involved in Hollywood since the dawn of Hollywood. They are animal wranglers, they're horse wranglers. So I love that little historical touch to it for sure. I also love the dynamic between them and the character Angel, and there's also the character Antlers Holst, which is a movie director in said universe. And I just loved the entry point. Is that, look, this is a horse ranch. They do this for Hollywood. They know Hollywood directors that can help them shoot this thing. They know a tech guy that's also interested in the paranormal, Steven Yeun, who's also in show business, but a different kind of show business. I just thought that was really interesting and ripe storytelling. The episodic nature of this movie, it did make me think while watching it that this could have been a really interesting TV show. But I also don't want to be the guy that every time he watches a movie says, oh, that should have just been a TV show. Because I don't think it could have. If you want to keep the Steven Yeun stuff, fine. That's probably why it should have been a TV show. If you want to like make that more relevant. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it was a fun movie to watch in theaters, and it is more my speed when it comes to Jordan Peele movies and horror movies. So I thoroughly enjoyed the horror and the sci-fi. The tension of this movie, it builds on itself really, really well. And also, I don't want to spoil anything, but the creature design I really appreciate. I've said this before, like when I review movies like Edge of Tomorrow. When we incorporate paranormal and aliens and extraterrestrials, things like that, I'm kind of over the cliche designs. You know, of course, it's the skinny humanoid with the big eyes. And then another thing that's kind of just been overused in cliche are like the crab monsters that are like Cloverfield or A Quiet Place or what was the other movie I was thinking of? I mean, Edge of Tomorrow is kind of like that, but visually, what I respond to more is design work that is basically things that I can't really like recognize or things that I don't quite know what I'm looking at. And I think they accomplish that. And that's just sort of where I'm at in my science fiction. I want to see things that I'm just not quite sure what I'm looking at, because I think that that's what it would actually be like. Because when you show me like the Super 8 creature, for example, when his whole thing is that he's like this big like spider crab thing, and he drives this classic like aluminum looking saucer, rocket fuel. We're led to believe that these creatures are scientifically intelligent and conquered space travel. It doesn't compute. When you tell me that this crab monster can conquer space travel, but also like design something that never looks like that creature would design, like an aluminum saucer, it doesn't make any sense to me anymore. I don't buy it as much. Like, I'm kind of over it. So I liked how they contributed to science fiction, is how I'll put it. So with that said, guys, Nope, as everyone is saying, Nope is a big yep. So definitely check it out if you haven't yet. It's worthy of going to see it in theaters. All right, so we review Nope. So the only thing left to do is rank the 3 directed Jordan Peele films. As I said during the review, it's been an interesting year because a lot of profound, prolific writer-directors have done their 3rd films this year. We had Robert Eggers doing The Northman, which I really liked. It's been a toss-up. You know, all 3 filmmakers, Robert Eggers, what's the other one? Alex Garland and Jordan Peele. They all have one movie that I love, and they also have one movie that I either like am indifferent about or dislike. So I was hoping that with Nope, we leaned more towards the positive side. And thankfully, especially if you saw my review, you know already that I enjoyed Nope quite a bit. I think it really worked for me, and I really responded to it. So far, so good. So with that said, let's very quickly rank the 3 Jordan Peele movies. I think if you know anything about me and you can kind of put together what I've already said about these movies, you probably know where I'm going with this. Us is my least favorite Jordan Peele film. Now, the performances are great, but I do think it's the slowest and the most boring of his 3 films. But also, it's a little bit more unclear as to like where we're going with the story, what he wants to say. I just don't think that balancing act of having a message but also a compelling story with characters, I don't think that balancing act really worked for me. So it's a pretty movie and it's really, really well acted, and I like the cast. But it also tonally it's a little weird. I mean, I really think it's kind of silly when they get to Elizabeth Moss's vacation home, and there's that whole gag with like the music as they're being brutally murdered. Like, that scene was so out of place for me, and So I just think overall it's the worst whole at the end of the day. And so it's a movie that I'm just kind of indifferent on. I don't think it's that great, but it's fine and whatever. Us, I was hoping that with Nope we didn't get an Us, and I don't think that we did. So anyway, so Us is easily my third favorite Jordan Peele movie. So number 2 is Nope. Like I said, I think when we talk about the greatest holes, I think that Nope is a little bit more ironed out. It also happens to be just more my thing when you incorporate a man versus beast, alien, mystery. I really, really loved it. I also, again, going back to my review, love the dynamic of the setting and the characters. I just thought that was a great entry point. And while there are parts of it that are unfocused, like everything with Steven Yeun, I still found it to be compelling and entertaining, and it had my attention, but ultimately just kind of, went out the door. So, with these movies, I don't think they're entirely perfect, and not all of the ideas come through or come across as concise as they probably could be. But Nope, I think, is a wonderful summer blockbuster, and I wish we had a movie like this every week. But unfortunately we can't. But I am excited more so. Again, when it came down to all these lists that I've done throughout the year, I've always been hoping to lean positive. That way I knew exactly where I stood with these directors. I feel like 3 movies is a great sample size at this point. So Jordan Peele, this is the kind of movie that got me back on board, I should say, with Jordan Peele. And I really appreciate what he did with this film. So number 1 is obviously Get Out. It was a massive success at the box office. It also, I think, is the best whole. It has the clearest message. I think what he contributed with The Sunken Place, it's one of the most iconic movies of the last 10 years. One of the best movies of the last 10 years. One of the best horror movies of the last 10 years. Just everything, that cast, Lakeith Stanfield, Daniel Kaluuya, it's just firing on all cylinders, and I don't think there's any debate. I think, the people that are coming out saying that Nope is better than Get Out, I kind of think they're forgetting what a phenomenon that movie was, and they're just letting the hype of Nope get to them. But I think Get Out, so few things in this genre. I think it's going to be hard for Jordan Peele to top Get Out just because of how big it was out the gate. That's the only thing that he has working against him, is that his first movie is one of the most iconic movies of all time. One of the most iconic movies of my lifetime, certainly. So, but Get Out, I think it's the best whole, and it's the most thrilling, most engaging, and I just think that's still the best, and I don't think there's any debate. So, that's it. Guys, Us, Nope, Get Out, in that order from worst to best. That is Jordan Peele movies ranked. That is another portion or episode of Every Movie Ever. You can find every movie ranking that I do on letterboxd.com/rewatchryan. All right, I think that does it for this week's Watch Diary. That was a breezy episode. I sat down thinking that I had a lot to, discuss, but I felt like that flew by. I don't know what the actual times are on this, but anyway, so let me see if I can finally find a release calendar real quick. So next week, it's DC League of Super Pets, Vengeance. Oh, that's the BJ Novak movie. I think I actually want to go see that. I don't think it's going to blow me away, but I'm kind of just in the mood for a movie like that. I don't really know why. And then August 5th is Bodies, 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 and Bullet Train. And I could have sworn Bullet Train was next week. But anyway, I think I'm going to talk about Vengeance. It's a nice little movie, and maybe I'll come up with another little concept for the show. I don't know. Maybe I'll have another TV show watched, and I can review that as well, because Vengeance isn't going to take up a whole lot of time. I can't imagine. But yeah, after that, I'll probably split up. I'll tell you what, I'll probably split up Bullet Train. So on August 5th, I'll probably do Bullet Train. And then I'll save Bodies, Bodies, Bodies for the August 12th week. Oh, you know what? Emily the Criminal. I'm actually really excited to watch that movie with Aubrey Plaza. I saw that trailer a week or so ago. If you haven't checked out the trailer, watch it. Emily the Criminal. I don't know when I'm going to do it. Maybe I'll do both. Bodies, 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 and Bullet Train. We'll see. So anyway, I actually do want to see a lot of those. Guys, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell. Also on TikTok at WhatUpSnell. No. That was my old handle. What am I doing? That was like 2 handles ago. That was weird. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at RewatchRyan. That's so weird. And Letterboxd.com/RewatchRyan. Guys, thank you so much. I'll probably post somewhere on social media what exactly I'm going to be doing. We also need a reason to get Brando back on here because Brando's been absent for a couple of weeks because he doesn't know how to keep his sound equipment at home. But that's okay. We'll figure it out. Guys, thank you so much. We also need to do some more rewatches and never before scenes. It's been almost a month since I put out either one. So I'll figure it out. Guys, I appreciate it. I'll see you on the next one.